Now we're gonna take questions from the audience, and I wonder, are there any journalists here today? One. Okay, that's amazing. But I think, do you have any questions for Mr. Shipton?
Thousands actually. Thousands actually, but one obvious one is what's the situation right now?
The book?
No, I mean for
No,
Julian.
I was just asking.
Yeah, no, but I didn't get, no, sorry, I didn't have time to get that, yes. You have the English copy?
In the bag in the car.
I can go,
Yes.
Okay, listen.
Yeah, we'd be really interested to hear a few words about what is the situation right now for Julian? I mean, legally, threat-wise, etc.
So the United States has until the 31st of October to reply to or make their submission to the High Court judge. Julian has an application for a hearing, so that you make an application to have a hearing, and that application is heard before a High Court judge. So the defence submits their arguments, and the prosecution submits their arguments. The judge evaluates them, and he either rejects it or chooses out of the 14 points that the defence has made those that are arguable in law. That decision is expected before spring, just before spring, so maybe April is the last I heard. It can be quick, you know, it could be 2 weeks after the 31st, but as it stands, the latest that the lawyers told me it will be around springtime that the decision is made. If there's no decision, if the judge says there's going to be no hearing, then it'll be the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights.
Okay, do you have another question?
Will it be postponed? I mean, is there a chance that the US might have him extradited immediately, or do they have to wait for the European Court?
The usual, and it's been so in the past, that the United Kingdom waits for the hearings in the European Court of Human Rights. And I'm told, and I don't know this as a fact, that in other cases where the European Court of Human Rights has decided not to recommend extradition, the United Kingdom have obeyed.
Right. One more?
Last one.
Yeah.
How is Julian now?
Fråga igen.
It's been
How is Julian now?
I saw Julian, I think it was yesterday, or the day before, the 23rd, I saw Julian. He's lost some more weight, a bit skinny, my view. He has a beard now. His hair is silvery still, and still got his hair, which was my worry because I lost mine. And his hair looks nice. And he had spent, I think, about 14 days in solitary confinement because with COVID, you're not allowed to mix. So he had COVID, and I guess that's not very comfortable, you know. So, but he looked all right, yeah, and was. He told a couple of jokes, you know.
For how long time are you able to see him when you go visit?
We go, it's a terrible procedure, you know. Sorry, I want to put this book of Nils Melzer's up here so the camera can see. So you go in this 4 locks, and the dog sniffs you, and you close the search, then you pat it down, then you X-ray, then you close the X-ray, you take off your shoes, and your belt, and your tie, your cufflinks, or whatever. So that the whole allowed time is an hour and a half, and it takes half an hour to get in there. So usually it's 1 hour. 1 hour. Stella can go twice a week, but I can only go, or Gabrielle can only go when we call by. He gets a 10-minute phone call, and then it's guillotine, and the number has to be registered, and the person who's getting the call registered as well. So I register John, my phone number, and then Julian's allowed to ring me up for 10 minutes. Yeah. There's a limited amount of time because there's 800 prisoners and they all want to use the phone services. So that is another limit that's placed on him. The lawyers, I think, get a 20-minute phone call or half hour. I can't remember properly, but I only remember my own difficulty, 10 minutes. So you know, you say hello, how you going, some gossip about, you know, children and all that sort of thing. Then you develop the conversation and go click, and you're left with halfway through and you think, oh, I hope he didn't misunderstand what I was, you know, that sort of feeling. Yeah.
And I guess he's still not allowed to use a laptop computer.
Well, he gets information from the lawyers to read naturally on a laptop, but the keys don't work. So, yeah.
Horrible. Okay, more questions? Okay, Bosse, number 4.
I mean, how does students survive without having a keyboard and being able to use the computer?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. You know, I guess they read long, right? You know, I don't know the answer. But the stuff that comes in from the solicitors and lawyers that he has to read all the legal stuff. That the last time I was there, the keyboard was glued down. They couldn't use the keyboard.
Yes.
In many struggles for human rights and justice and so forth, culture plays an important part. I know that David Rovics has written a number of songs about Julian Assange, but can you tell us about what's your...
Well, you know, it's that's a big, good question, you know. The upwelling of culture surrounding Julian...
Repeat the question. Sorry, I'm not used to do this.
Repeat
Yeah.
the question.
You asked about the cultural
participation in the struggle for freedom in this
yes.
case.
In what ways have culture been helping the case of Julian Assange, like songwriters and theaters and have you?
Yes. So then, you know, lots of films. You know, I've been involved in 4. There's Hacking Justice, which is a good film, and it's had 106 showings in France. The last one last month still had 360 people turn up. So that's a cultural phenomenon. 360 after 105 showings in France. Great. With this Ithaca, we had 30 showings in the United Kingdom and 30 in Australia, and we're going to do another 45 in the United States. The number of songs must be like 20 now that have composed around Julian. The number of artworks, and some of them are really fantastic, you know, really, is lots of people are trying to archive them and gather them together. So in Berlin at the moment, at an art gallery, there's a display of let's say artworks around WikiLeaks, around the revelations of WikiLeaks. One of them is a box like this and about that big, and you put in a question to the cables. As you know, all the cables, the 250,000 are held on WikiLeaks, where you put in a question, and this will spit out a cable. So you put in, say, General Petraeus, and then this machine rolled it out rather like a receipt from a shop. Some of them are quite long, some of them are 20 pages long. There's a book now in that same, there's a book of the entirety of all of the cables, about that fat. There are many, many things, hundreds of posters, and the cultural phenomenon surrounding Julian is, I reckon, first, we of course are concerned over Julian, but talking to Honey Ruth, we try to work out what, because we are motivated by feelings, people are. What is it? What is it? And Arnie proposed that it's a combination of compassion, seeing into things, and then passion as founded upon a desire to see justice and a revulsion over obvious, cruel injustice. And I reckon that's pretty heartening, you know, and because people say, you know, terrible things about human beings all the time. We're destroying the planet and all this sort of thing. Drives me berserk, actually. I don't like to see the quality of human beings lowered. I know we're mixed, you know, I know that, but I like to see us, I like to see a plateau that sits just above us that we can reach up for, you know. I think that's really healthy, so the revulsion of the injustice is heartening in as much as that it's a Kant's, somebody remind me of Kant's imperative, that there is within us a urge for a moral quality, and I think that that's pretty healthy, yes, and that's happening. There's millions of people support Julian. In Austria, which is a small place, you know, Vienna, I was there the day before yesterday, 47,000 people are in the Facebook group, and it's active. It's active. 2 Facebook groups in France, 35,000, 37,000. I think there's one in Germany, 50,000. 800,000 people have signed the Get Up petition for Julian. Well, that's pretty heartening, isn't it? And that's a phenomenon of culture and a great depth of human feeling.
But one can say, right, that there's been authorities and politicians have really tried to make Julian an entity that you cannot make culture from. All the this ideas that he was doing in the embassy about these terrible things. It's like it's a big effort to try to make Julian not worthy songs and right.
Yes, that you know, that gives me the creeps.
Yeah, sure.
the unscrupulous campaign of slander and calumny for 12 years, 12 years continuously throughout the world, you know, in order to reduce Julian to a common criminal, despite the fact that all of the revelations in WikiLeaks have impeccable integrity. So they attempt to ruin the author in order to devalue what's in the revelations in WikiLeaks, to take our mind off the fact of crime after crime after crime. And when you've read the phrase, you know, crime against humanity, that's a crime against you and your kids and your family and your community. A crime against humanity is a crime against us. A war crime is a similar thing, but in a particular theatre. Now, ruining all of the water purification plants. For God's sake. I mean, everybody can see instantaneously that that is the most heinous of crimes. We can see that. But they get us to focus on Julian, you know, arguments about whether he looks after Pussycat. I mean, the Pussycat's his companion. There's nobody else there. He loves the cat. They try to lower his value in our eyes by saying that he doesn't look after his pussycat. It's absurd.
More questions? Yes.
So my question for John Shipton is if you think that it still would be helpful in stopping the US extradition to push for a full and transparent investigation into the Swedish preliminary investigation against Julian, since the Swedish case has arguably slandered Julian and made it easier to deprive him of his fundamental rights? Or is the Swedish case already overplayed, making it better to just focus directly on stopping the US extradition?
Did everybody hear that?
This is a really good
It's
question.
very difficult. Could you please give me the mic? Because, oh, no, you can't use another mic. Okay. Well, it's about the Swedish case.
Do you want me to read it out loud?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
turn
do it,
around
please.
so everybody
Because I
can
can't
hear.
repeat that, it's too much for me.
Okay, so my question...
Res dig upp och säg det högt. Rise up.
Aha, på svenska?
No, in English, please.
Okay, in English. So, my question was if John thinks that it still would be helpful in stopping the US extradition to push for a full and transparent investigation into the Swedish preliminary investigation against Julian, since the Swedish case has arguably slandered Julian and made it easier to deprive him of his fundamental human and legal rights? Or is the Swedish case already overplayed, making it better to just focus directly on stopping the US extradition?
Thank you. Thank you. Look, that's an excellent question. If I may say so, there's only one way back for Sweden into the human family of nations for its reputation. Just one way. A full inquiry into the Swedish prosecuting authorities' administration of the Assange case. Only way. It's up to you.
Questions? Yes, Hans Christian? Okay.
I have just one question. What can we now in Sweden do to support Julian in the best way at this moment?
What can we in Sweden do to support you in the best way at this moment?
Well, fulfill this lady's down the front's request, you know. Get that inquiry going.
All right.
Christina, you were going to ask.
Yeah, Roger Waters. Roger Waters.
Yes.
He's coming to Sweden next spring, or this spring. Could you please tell us about Roger Waters' music, his passion for defending Julian Assange, please?
Okay, the question is about Roger Waters, the bass player in Pink Floyd, and how he helps this case with his work.
Rogers has been, look, he was magnificent. We did an event with him in New York, and we had, I don't think Lee was there, Mate was there, Randy Credico and Chris Hedges, all of them great contributors, particularly Mate and Hedges. And so Roger said a few words, and then he, towards the end of the evening, he pulled out this piece of paper, and he opened it up, and he said, "Look, I've just got this from Facebook, that they want to use my song, The Wall. They wanted permission to use it. Well, they can get fucked." So, in this, so you can see he uses, he's very clever, he uses an opportunity which will amplify itself right around the world to reject this huge amount of money from Facebook to use one of his songs. And in an Assange event, it amplifies itself around the world. So he uses his reputation, his cleverness, his understanding of publicity, his affection for Julian. What more can you ask? You can't ask more. And every single concert he does, he always has an Assange, free Assange of one sort or another. He's great. Yeah. He's actually, he is a premier human being in song and morals.